Hello everyone, Disha here. Welcome back to this video, and we are going to continue with the 11th shlok from the 7th chapter, which is knowledge of the absolute. In this video we left at the 10th shlok in the previous video, so let's continue further. So the 11th shlok says, I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. Now coming to the 12th shlok, which says, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they on the contrary are within me. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. All material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes of nature are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Similarly, all the modes of material nature, goodness, passion and ignorance, are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, but Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirgun, which means that these guns or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. That is one of the special characteristics of Bhagwan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now coming to the 13th shlok, which says, deluded by the three modes, ignorance, passion, goodness, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The whole world is enchanted by the three modes of material nature. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord Krishna. Every living entity under the influence of material nature has a particular type of body and a particular type of psychological and biological activities accordingly. There are many different kinds of living entities, human beings, demigods, animals, etc. And each and every one of them is under the influence of material nature, and all of them have forgotten the transcendental personality of Godhead. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, and even those who are in the mode of goodness, cannot go beyond the impersonal Brahman conception of the absolute truth. They are bewildered before the Supreme Lord and his personal feature, which possesses all beauty, opulence, knowledge, strength, fame and renunciation. When even those who are in goodness cannot understand, what hope is there for those in passion and ignorance? Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all these three modes of material nature, and those who are truly established in Krishna consciousness are actually liberated. Now coming to the 14th shlok, which says, this divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior energy, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nityabad, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the Supreme Will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by the divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows. Although Maya illusion is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the Supreme Magician, the Personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwar, the Supreme Controller. Another meaning of Guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by the person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna and his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of illusionary energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender onto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The word Mam Eva are also significant. Mam refers on to Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, and therefore he can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas confirm this in the phrase, freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, there is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Now coming to the 15th slok, which says, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Now coming to the explanation of this slok. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that simply by surrendering oneself onto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality Krishna, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. At this point, a question arises. How is it that educated philosophers, scientists, businessmen, administrators, and all the leaders of ordinary man do not surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the all-powerful personality of Godhead? Mukti or liberation from the laws of material nature is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways and with great plans and perseverance for a great many years and births. But if that liberation is possible by simply surrendering onto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why don't these intelligent and hard-working leaders adopt this simple method? The Gita answers this question very frankly. Those really learned leaders of society like Brahma, Shiva, Kapila, Kumaras, Manu, Vyasa, Devala, Asita, Janak, Prahlad, Bali, and many others, who are faithful philosophers, politicians, educators, scientists, surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Person, the all-powerful authority. Those who are not actually philosophers, scientists, educators, administrators, etc., but who pose themselves for such material gain do not accept the plan or path of the Supreme Lord. They have no idea of God. They simply manufacture their own worldly plans and consequently complicate the problems of material existence in their vain attempts to solve them. Because material energy nature is so powerful, it can resist the unauthorized plans of the atheist and baffle the knowledge of planning commissions. The atheistic plan makers are described herein by the word miscreants. Kriti means one who has performed meritorious work. The atheist plan maker is sometimes very intelligent and meritorious also, because any gigantic plan, good or bad, must take intelligence to execute. But because of the atheist brain is improperly utilized in opposing the plan of the Supreme Lord, the atheistic plan maker is called Duskriti, which indicates that his intelligence and efforts are misdirected. In the Gita, it is clearly mentioned that material energy works fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. It has no independent authority. It works as the shadow moves, in accordance with the movements of the object. But still, material energy is very powerful, and the atheist, due to his godless temperament, cannot know how it works, nor can he know the plan of the Supreme Lord. Under illusion and modes of passion and ignorance, all his plans are baffled, as in the case of Hiranyakasipu and Ravan, whose plans were smashed to dust, although they were both materially learned as scientists, philosophers, administrators, and educators. These Duskirtinas or miscreants are of the 4 different patterns as outlined below. The Mudas are those who are grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of the labor by themselves and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is an animal who is made to work very hard for his master. He does not really know for whom he is working so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under the fear of being beaten again by his master. This is the position of a foolish fruitive worker who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know that karma action is meant for yajna, sacrifice. Most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being. To such mudas, material gains which are destructible and lives all in all, despite the fact that the mudas enjoy only a very small fraction of the fruit of labor. Sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for fruitive gain. They are simply absorbed in working hard day and night for the benefit of illusionary masters. Ignorant of their real master, the foolish workers waste their valuable time serving Mammon. Unfortunately, they never surrender to the Supreme Master of all masters, nor do they take time to hear of them from the proper sources. The swine who eat the night soil do not care to accept sweetmeats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear of the sense enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. Another class of Duskriti or miscreant is called Naradham or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human beings and Adham means the lowest. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed but who have no religious principles must be considered Naradhams. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relationship with him. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relationship with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna, who is all powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as Naradham. We get information from revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is eternally related with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusionary energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive their divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies are enjoyed in the Manusmriti, which is the guide to religious principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnasram. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world and therefore 99.9% of the population is Naradham. When the whole population becomes Naradham, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by all-powerful energy of physical nature. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is propagating the Bhagavad Dharma or activities of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. The lowest among human beings can be delivered by this submissive hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception of these messages and what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. Naradhams or the lowest of mankind will fully neglect the prime duty of the human being. The next class is of Duskriti, or those persons who erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of the illusionary material energy. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, scientists, but the illusionary energy misguides them and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. In the Gita, in plain and simple language, it is stated that Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is none equal to or greater than him. He is mentioned as the father of Brahma, the original father of all human beings. In fact, Sri Krishna is said to be not only the father of Brahma but also the father of all species of life. He is the root of the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. The super soul in every entity is his plenary portion. He is the fountainhead of everything, and everyone is advised to surrender onto his lotus feet. The last class of Duskriti is those of the demonic principles. This class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend upon this material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reason as to why not. There are others who make him subordinate to the impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in the Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead cannot surrender onto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Sri Yamunacharya, Alabandaru of South India said, "O my Lord, you are unknowable to persons involved with atheistic principles. Despite your uncommon qualities, features and activities, despite your personality is being confirmed by all the revealed scriptures in the quality of goodness, and despite your being acknowledged by the famous authorities renowned for their depth of knowledge in the transcendental science and situated in the godly qualities. Therefore, grossly foolish people, the lowest of mankind, the deluded speculators and the professed atheists are above mentioned. Never surrender onto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, in spite of all scriptural and authoritative advice." Now coming to the 16th shlok, which says, "O best among the Bharats, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for the knowledge of the Absolute." Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Unlike the miscreants, these are adherents or the regulative principles of the scriptures, and they are called Sukritina, or those who obey the rules and regulations of scriptures, the moral and social laws, and are more or less devoted to the Supreme Lord. Out of these, there are 4 classes of men: those who are sometimes distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are sometimes inquisitive, and those who are sometimes searching after absolute truth. These persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service under different conditions. These are not pure devotees because they have some aspiration to fulfill in exchange for devotional service. Pure devotional service is without aspiration and without desire for material profits. The Bhakti Sindhu defines pure devotion thus: one should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. When these 4 kinds of persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service and are completely purified by the association of a pure devotee, they also become pure devotees. As far as the miscreants are concerned, for them devotional service is very difficult because their lives are selfish, irregular, and without spiritual goals. But even some of them, by chance, when they come in contact with the pure devotee, also become pure devotees. Those who are always busy with fruitive activities come to the Lord in material distress, and at that time associate with pure devotees and become, in their distress, devotees of the Lord. Those who are simply frustrated also come sometimes to associate with the pure devotees and become inquisitive to know about God. Similarly, when the dry philosophers are frustrated in every field of knowledge, they sometimes want to learn of God, and they come to the Supreme Lord to render devotional service and thus transcend knowledge of the impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma, and come to the personal conception of Godhead by the grace of the Supreme Lord or his pure devotee. On the whole, when the distressed, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, and those who are in need of money are free from all material desires, and when they fully understand that material remuneration has nothing to do with spiritual improvement, they become pure devotees. As long as purified stage is not attained, devotees in transcendental service to the Lord are tainted with fruitive activities, the search for mundane knowledge, etc. So one has to transcend all this before one can come to the stage of pure devotional service. Now coming to the 17th shlok, it says, "Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and he is dear to me." Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. Free from all contaminations of material desires, the distressed, the inquisitive, the penniless, and the seeker after supreme knowledge can all become pure devotees. But out of them, he who is in knowledge of the absolute truth and free from all material desires becomes a really pure devotee of the Lord. And of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and is at the same time engaged in devotional service is, the Lord says, the best. By searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body, and when further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be eternal servant of God. So by association with pure devotees, the inquisitive, the distressed, the seeker after material amelioration, and the man in knowledge all becomes themselves pure. But in the preparatory stage, the man who is in full knowledge of the Supreme Lord and is at the same time executing devotional service is very dear to the Lord. He who is situated in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Personality of God is so protected in devotional service that material contamination cannot touch him. Now coming to the 18th shloka, which says, all these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. It is not that devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all are magnanimous because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma or great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because they are an exchange of affection. Out of affection, they ask the Lord for some material benefit, and when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in devotional service. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with devotion and love. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. This is what the Lord says in Srimad Bhagavatam. The devotee does not know anything beyond me, and I cannot forget the devotee. There is a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees in full knowledge are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they are very much dear to me. Now coming to the 19th shloka, it says, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrender unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. The living entities, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many births, may actually become situated in transcendence, pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of the spiritual variegatedness and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks that everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Thus a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is said, in the body of the living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life which is the center of all activities. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. In this body, there are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord. And because Vasudeva is all pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. Now coming to the 20th shloka, which says, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender onto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. Those who are freed from all material contaminations surrender unto the Supreme Lord and engage in His devotional service. As long as material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by external nature because of approaching the right goal. They soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to the Vasudev and worship him. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such persons do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following these rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided, because in Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that a Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is master of all other servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. So we are going to end this video on the 20th shlok, and we are going to continue with the 21st shlok of this chapter, which is knowledge of the absolute, in the next video, and we are going to complete this entire chapter in the next video. My name is Disha, and I will see you all in the next video.